Hello, we might make a start. Thank you so much for coming. My name is Chantal Faust. I'm a senior tutor in the School of Arts and Humanities here at the RCA, and it's my absolute pleasure to welcome you all this evening to Mary in my urine, my mouth, my heart, my madness, my sleep, my me, my sea, my me, or Call 1966 by Mary Glass, a lecture by Professor Carol Mavor. I just wanted to give you a little bit of background on the series before we get into the introductions properly. So tonight's lecture is part of SoAH Research Presents, which is a series of public events with guest speakers and performers devised by the research groups that are currently running in the school. The research groups involve MRes, MPhil and PhD researchers, as well as staff researchers, who come together on a weekly basis, each cluster focusing on the implications of a single word. This year, the research groups in the School of Arts and Humanities are Collaboration, which is led by Professor Victoria Walsh, Documents, led by Professor Olivier Richon, Entanglement, led by Professor Johnny Golding, Environment, led by Dr. Sarah Teasley, Reenactment, led by Professor Rebecca Fortnum and Dr. Nikki Coots, and Me, which is led by me. So in Me, we have been thinking about ideas relating to subjectivity as a scene, to narration as a political act, and the urgency of shifting, mobile, simultaneous, multiple positions and vocalities. We've been thinking about ideas relating to subjectivity, decentered subjects, the politics and pleasures of showing and showing off, and thinking about originality, voice, poetry, autobiography, autofiction, self-portraiture, and the faith. When we came to thinking about this evening's event and considering the me-ness of it all, we knew that we wanted a single speaker to represent the Me research group, someone who would dive into me as a word, a theme, and a concept, and someone who would tease it, play with it, and whose thoughts on the implications and potentials of me as a subject we would really want to hear. So it was a bit of a no-brainer, really, that we really wanted Carol Mavor to speak to us, and the invitation that we sent to her was quite simple. Dear Carol, we would love to hear you speak about me. Carol Mavor is Professor of Art History and Visual Culture at the University of Manchester. As a writer who takes creative risks in form and political risks in content, she has published widely on photography, cinema, colour, and childhood. Carol is the author of Reading Boyishly, Black and Blue, Blue Mythologies, Pleasures Taken, Becoming, and Aurelia. She is the Novos Nordic Foundation Professor at Copenhagen University for all of 2019. So we're even especially thankful for her joining us here in London this evening. Just before Carol takes the stage, I would like to thank Juan Cruz and Dufault, Rebecca Tadman, Joel Chan, and Emma Angold for their help with organising tonight's event. And I would like to introduce Sharon Boothroyd, who is a researcher from the Me group and who's going to introduce Carol. Sharon is a current research student in the School of Arts and Humanities. She's an artist and writer, and her research offers a feminist interpretation of hysterical narrative as agency through photography and autofiction. Thank you, Sharon.
I'm sitting in the dark in a screening room at Whitechapel Gallery a couple of years ago, waiting for the documentary Podo and Cabengo, the twin girls who grew up in America in the 1970s, who formed their own private language and who became a media sensation, to begin. I hear the lyrical narrative, as Mary Kelly put it, of Carol Mavor's voice introducing the girls and also the film, and I'm compelled not only by the subject matter and the musical voice, but also the poetic and personal way she speaks about them. There seems to be a mirroring of what I'm about to see on the screen as a mystical phenomenon and the way in which Mavor herself conducts her speech and her choice of vocabulary. I feel as though I'm part of a private language myself. Lulled into this darkened room in a childlike fascination of what's happening around me, being rocked and rocked back and forth by Carol's language and voice, back to my own beginnings 30 plus years before, and taken into the womb. A meeting of time and cultures as this couldn't have been summoned up in normative academic or even art speak. Something immersive and phenomenological occurred that I couldn't put my finger on at the time. I just sat wide-eyed. Then, later, when researching for my PhD, absorbed in reading boyishly, I had another catapultingly resonant experience. Through Carol's use of the written word in relation to Barthes and Proust, she helped me understand, in a more than cerebral way, my own relationship to anorectic hedonism that pinpointed for me a specific breakthrough in my relationship with image and word and experience and motherhood and desire, too much to go into here. But after that Whitechapel screening, I had the luxury of listening into a conversation with Carol and a mutual friend, the painfully talented photographic artist Esther Teichmann, who has worked with Carol extensively and who, through her images, conveys much of this ethos that I'm failing to describe. Just by listening into their interaction, I felt privy to a connection of human levels that was both based in and transcending language. It seems as though, through image and text, and thought, and in conversation, and in her very vocal lyricism, Carol Mavor both and at the same time gets to the heart of the gut and the mind. Since then, my research has evolved, thankfully, into a critique of normative phallocentric discourse, asking if there are other ways to be heard and other ways to speak. I put much of its beginnings down to these profound experiences, unutterable at the time, of listening to and reading Carol Mavor's work, and so this is a welcome opportunity to thank her for that. In Italy this past summer, I was halfway through Aurelia when someone stole it from my bag. I often think of that thief and hope that they were captivated by Carol's spell and were transformed in a kind of Les Miserables manner. But doubtful of their time to read their stolen goods, I'll transfer these fantasies onto you and trust that you'll be beholden and captivated by Carol Mavor and her wonder and mastery over the visual and linguistic realms. So please can you join me in welcoming Carol Mavor to the stage.
Well, that was really beautiful. Thank you so much. And as always, I'm so happy and honored to be speaking here at the RCA, which has been a part of my work for so long. So thank you for coming. Mary, in my urine, my mouth, my heart, my madness, my sleep, my sea, my me, or call, 1966 by Mary Glass. This evening's essay, written aloud, entitled Mary in my urine, my heart, my madness, my sleep, my sea, my urine, is a dance of words, its patter, its flying leaps with Mary Glass, whose life is the subject of my current book project, Like the Sea. Mary Glass, who was born in 1936, and died in 2018, was an innovative dancer and choreographer, quietly instrumental to the San Francisco Bay Area art scene of the 1960s. Barely known today by an increasingly diminishing handful of nearly extinct devotees. For her experimental movements on sounds and images of the ocean, often performed alone or with an audience of one or two. She is disappearing like water in water, but I think she would have preferred it that way. She knew other Bay Area dancers of the time, Yvonne Rainer, Anna Halprin, and Simone Forti. She often danced nude. Her signature dance, Call, grew from a letter that she had sent to her close friend, lover, and confidant, the abstract expressionist painter Eliza Vesper. I love Mary. Why is it that God made some people so plain and unpleasant, and others beautiful and kind like Mary? She had an unseasoning, unreasoning, tender love, like champagne, like the tentacles of sea anemones dancing in a salty tide pool. Catch the Baby, The Birth of Mary, August 1936. Like a summer's day, well, it was a summer's day. Hello, whispered each soft wave, each contraction slowly collected in Mary's mother's gravid uterus. Polite maritime greetings. They take their time. The waves barely make any waves at all. Collect and fall, collect and fall. That is all. Mary's mother goes to pee. The toilet is a chambered nautilus shell, scrubbed of its cephalopod, prepared for some unknown blessing, a pearlized orifice, a missing tongue for unspeaking. When Mary's mother stands to flush, a mucousy, blood-tinged sea slug has slipped out of her vagina into the warm tide pool of urine. Lilies and embryos. And then back in bed. And then the waves begin to build. And then bearable small pains at the top of each wave. Swimming cramp, pause. Swimming cramp, pause. Swimming cramp, pause. Time does not fly. Yet clocks chime ever so slowly. And then, and now the waves are big. Steady, up, up, up she goes. Nearly unbearable, pain at the top of the wave. Trough to crest, no time to rest. Cruel, crude, mannerless waves. A fishhook in her cervix. She moans deeply. Up there at the top of the huge wave, Mary's mother sees Mary's father on the beach. Hello, Daddy, she screams to him. He cannot hear her. He does not look. Mary's mother will die, she thinks. Drown, 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 drown in pain. A bat ray with its venomous barbed spines at the base of its hopelessly long tail enters her cervix. Her sand dollar aperture opens a bit larger and larger and larger. From cervix to spine, an electric eel shock spasm. Closer, closer, closer the waves come, each one a spectacular new height. Rogue waves, freak waves, killer waves, monster waves. She waits for the fall. To love is to wait for the fall. The flat ocean comes, only for it to disappear upon arrival. She vomits from the pain, she shits. Here comes another, the most spectacular of all. Time to push, out of time. Her mother, Henrietta, was all hot and all cold like dying. Another wave, more pushing. Within a few minutes, Mary's head starts to emerge with a thick bag of unpunctured water surrounding her. Ring of fire, catch the baby, catch the ball, catch the meaning, catch the day, catch wind of it, catch fire, catch me. The doctor's rubber-gloved hands catch Mary in her clear, cling wrap, amniotic sac, her peekaboo egg, her transparent balloon, her chrysalis intact. with the amniotic sac ballooning out of her mother's vagina and Mary remaining entirely inside the unbroken membrane. Mary was born en caul. This is very rare. At birth, Mary was truly between two worlds, the sea of her mother and the rest of the world. Peering into her soft-boiled glass egg, one could see the pale blue, twisted rubber licorice umbilical cord wrapped around her face, just below her still-closed, long-slit eyes. Gloved fingers grab and gently tear the slimy casing. A river of water rushes out. Gently. "Thank you," whispers the doctor in awe as he pulls the caul away, away, away from Mary's scrunched face and little body, so skinny and chubby at once. A little silky, being robbed of her sealskin. No longer in a cupboard of two hearts. Thump, 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 thump. To be born with the caul. Mary emerged from the open legs of her mother, still enclosed, still inside, still in the amniotic sac, still in her initial home, still in that place where she first swam. To be born en caul is highly auspicious, especially if you were born to a family of California vegetarians in the 1930s, especially if your mother danced nude with the Marion Morgan dancers. In 1920, Henrietta Glass was featured with two other naked Marion Morgan dancers gazing at themselves in a pool of water made more lovely by the flowering nymphea, which reflected their lovely bodies as female nature deities, girl narcissi, in the Los Angeles Times. The article was called "The Nude in Art, Living Pictures," December 26, 1920. Especially if your father once worked at the Eutrophian, a vegetarian raw food cafeteria in Los Angeles, before becoming a professor at Berkeley, specializing on painting from the Indian walled-in city of Jodhpur, where the houses are coated indigo blue, like a mirage in the Thar Desert, like stunning waves of blue ocean water. It is said that to be born with the caul will protect you from drowning. The one who does not speak. The word for child in French, enfant, comes from the Latin infans, from in, not, and fare, to speak, the one who does not speak. No one can quite remember when Mary stopped speaking. Was there a last word? Was she 9? No one can quite remember when Mary began to have trouble eating at the table. Was she 9? It was then that her sister Melanie, only 10 months her elder, took it upon herself to feed her older sister. She is more myself than I am. Whatever our souls are made of, hers and mine are the same. When no one was looking, Melanie slipped chewed food from her mouth into Mary's. Their secret, no one saw, nobody knew. I'm nobody, who are you? Mary did not know what she loved more, the kiss feeding, a kiss of sardine sandwich with olive oil and mustard, a kiss of cherry tart, a kiss of slippery oysters, or the secret itself, like warm buttered toast with apricot jam, pre-mastication, kiss feeding. She sucked and she sucked, and she sucked the more fruits which that unknown orchard bore. She sucked until her lips were sore. Plums on their twigs, pluck them and suck them, pomegranate figs. When she stopped eating properly, little Mary became a sinuous minnow, beautiful and sparkling and transparent. You could see her alabaster sugar bones, so delicate you could eat her up, bones and all, like sardines from Monterey, California. It was at that time that her mother, Henrietta, on the advice of their family doctor, brought her two daughters, Melanie and Mary, to Anna Halpern's afternoon dance classes for children twice a week in Marin County. They wore baggy leotards with long zippers up the back. They danced on the beach. They danced on Halpern's outdoor redwood deck amongst real growing redwoods with a view to the ocean and a scent of forest and sea. One day after class, Anna Halpern, who loved children, offered Mary a piece of orange sprinkled with sugar, and Mary took it, and Mary put it in her own mouth, and Mary chewed it herself, and Mary swallowed it, and Melanie watched. And Mary spoke. She said, "Thank you," to the wonderful modern dance teacher, who was a mother herself and who liked to mother all children. Today, that dance teacher is 98 years old, the famous modern dancer Anna Halpern, and she's still dancing. Dance became Mary's inside food and her inside speech, so much so that she did not mind putting real food in her mouth and talking out loud. That is, when she was not dancing. Melanie, melancholy me. She danced for Melanie. She danced for melancholy. She danced for me. Me, me, me. Waka, waka, waka. On the 8th of January, 2018, I visited Point Lobos, California, to meet Mary Glass in person for the first time. I recorded my feelings on my mobile phone as I walked up the hill to Mary's house on a sandy cliff overlooking the ocean. Sounds of me walking on the rock path up to Mary's house. My own breath full of anticipation. The crashing of waves, cushioned by distance, barely audible. Waka, 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 calls an acorn woodpecker. Its black and white clown-like face and red cap unseen. I am visiting Mary's house. She lives in Point Lobos. It's a tiny little house. Mary has just turned 82. She's a tiny, beautiful old woman full of joy. I have come to her to talk to her about her life. I want to know about her dancing, about her love for Eliza Vesper. I have a desire to know. This desire sprung like a great lake from a book that I've just finished about the Bay Area photographer named Coda Gray, who was influenced by Edward Weston, who took sensual modern photographs of nude men, whom Mary was briefly married to. Upon my arrival, Mary brings me to a little table with 2 chairs. We drink red wine from Mendocino as blue as the sea. 5 objects have been carefully arranged on the table. An abalone shell, a letter that she had sent to her close friend and confidant, the painter Eliza Vesper, Coda Gray's unpublished manuscript. She opens it up to a page with a small print of one of Weston's nautilus shells. The onion skin paper is from another time, transparent like the call. Through the paper, I can read some of his typed words. Unlimited space behind, the amorphous edge suggests. Also, a Super 8 film in a turquoise metal film canister. I notice that she has the projector set up. And a photograph of her as a young woman. I recognize it. It was taken by Edward Weston. Even at 82, original little Mary is still there, her ultramarine, almond-shaped eyes in a liquid state of pleasure. When she closes her breathtaking blue eyes, still clear, not milky with age, it is as though a pair of curtains have been drawn to shut out the view of the ocean. Mary is tiny, briny, not of this world. Her smile comes slowly and gently, never in a flash. Her thin lips, grown thinner with age, smile in a gentle bow. When she smiles, she closes her eyes, her mouth now lined, repeating the same arc as her closed lids. Her eyelashes are the strokes of the handwriting of a child. Her closed eye smile finishes with a spray of childlike chuckle. I am in love with an older woman with silver hairpins. I find her silver hairpins in my bed, her body thin with the muscles seemingly still ready for the flight into dance. When I was studying dance, I wanted to be Yvonne Rainer. I wanted to be Anna Halprin. I deeply wanted to be Simone Forti. And I really wanted to be Mary Glass. I love Mary Glass. You must love the daily work, Merce Cunningham told Anna, told Yvonne, told Mary, told me. From mouth to mouth to mouth, through the dancers trained by him. I loved the daily work. Go to the beach and find those special coves near Santa Cruz and get naked to dance. Nothing between the two of you but your skin, swimming, dancing underwater like water and water, transference, countertransference, purl one, knit two. Mary danced for her entire life since she was 9, save for the interlude of 2 years, 1965 to 1967, when she was briefly married to the photographer Coda Gray. They lived together in the Sierra Mountains, close to San Francisco and Lake Tahoe. They split in 1967, and she moved with her big Newfoundland dog named Shasta back to the Pacific Ocean, back to San Francisco. Interlude, 2 years of no dance. The no dancing began when Coda asked Mary to pose nude for some cyanotypes he was making. She was already 28 years old, but she looked so young. Mary watched Coda coat the huge sheet of smooth, hot-press watercolor paper with his chemical solution of ferric ammonium citrate green and potassium ferric cyanide. Coda applied the solution with a sponge so that there would be no brush strokes. He wanted the surface to be even, as smooth as possible, like Lake Tahoe on a calm day. He was making the paper sensitive to light. Coda asked Mary to lie on the big sheets of coated paper, rounding her body like a crescent moon. He tossed flowers around her like voices to be caught, and then he began to expose her with the hot lights that he shined on her and the flowers and the paper. The hot light felt wonderful on her nude body. It felt erotic. Mary fell in love with the light that reached out to her from him, the delayed rays of a star. When Mary looked at the finished cyanotype of herself curled round like an infant in the womb, she thought she remembered being there. She knew the blue was the sea and the white was the salt that had been pulled out of her body by the harsh light, by Coda. Mary could not dance when she was with Coda. Was it because she was away from the Pacific Ocean, her rumba, her foxtrot, her salsa, her jazz, her pirouette, her me? When she sees the sea, she sees her me, a face in the waves. I like you. Mary liked woman, don't we all? And Mary's closest friend was Eliza Vesper, who lived from 1926 to 2014, who would become known for breaking into abstract expressionism. The two met when Mary was spending a summer at the Cunningham School of Dance in New York. The year was 1954. Mary was 18 years old. Eliza was older. She was 28. At that time, Eliza was already becoming known for her beauty and for her painting, her Breathing Sea from 1952. For Eliza, dance was a way into her painting, and she was often seen at the Cunningham School. Eliza was tall. She walked on her toes, always looking as if she wanted to lie down and not rise again. Her large, dark, gray-blue, almost black eyes staring without focus. She moved as if clairaudient, seemingly always listening and touching the seen and the unseen with her lovely long-fingered hands before her, swimming gracefully through the air like sea anemone tentacles, bending and twisting with the underwater undulations of the sea. Around the edges of her scrubbed clean hands, softened with lavender cream, her fingernails held traces of her Winsor & Newton oils, cerulean blue, Prussian green, titanium white, cobalt, violet, ivory black, cadmium red, bismuth yellow, cobalt green, French ultramarine, tiny dots of perennial color. Mary had oceans of energy. Eliza was a sea of calm. Although influenced by Jackson Pollock's painting, spreading the unstretched canvas on the floor, painting on it directly, there was a difference. Pollock danced, performed around her canvas. Pollock danced, performed around his canvas, crossing one boot over another, but his dance stayed on the edges of his all-over splattered canvas. Eliza got inside her canvas, using her oil paints like watercolors, thinning them down with turpentine and linseed oil, allowing the paint to spread, encouraging halos of transparent feminine colors. She stood barefoot in the middle and slowly painted her way out, while Pollock danced heavily about and shook, splattered, and dripped his paint onto the canvas. Eliza performed a slow dance, which began in the middle, from where she would then slowly paint her way out. Her movement was precise, like Yvonne Rainer. In 1966, when Eliza arrived at Mary's house in Point Lobos, California, it was the first time that she saw the Pacific Ocean. So different from the Atlantic Ocean that Eliza knew. Mary was 30, Eliza was 40. On Eliza's left pinky was a platinum ring with an amethyst stone, flashing like a tiny fisheye, a gift from her lover, whom she had just abandoned a week before. Driving across Bixby Bridge in Big Sur and Mary's Volkswagen Bug, the Pacific entered her dreams and became her large canvas painting, The Other Ocean, from 1966. With the Pacific entering Eliza for the first time, the two, they became lovers, consistent, if occasional, for some forever years. Driven by the wind and the gravitational pull of the sun and the moon. Ever since that first time that Mary made love with Eliza, a chestnut brown canary flapped and fluttered uncontrollably inside her. Mary's pink nipples twitched up like the noses of rabbits. Inside, outside. It's not the same to make love inside your body rather than outside, writes Lucy Irigaray. Eliza and Mary made love inside, or is it outside? Seahorses begin their mating with daily pre-dawn dances, floating upright as they do in the blue, greens, and blacks of their seas, intertwining their tails and swimming together. Eventually, they engage in a true courtship dance, which can last as long as 8 hours. It ends with the female depositing her eggs in the male's pouch. He can carry as many as 2,000 at a time. His highly productive pregnancy is efficient not only in numbers, but also time, lasting from 10 to 25 days, depending on the species. It's not the same for your baby to be carried inside your body rather than outside, writes Lucy Irigaray. Hippocampus, plural hippocampi. 1. A mythological creature with the front head and forelimbs of a horse and the rear of a dolphin. 2. The scientific name for the real fish we commonly call a seahorse. 3. In anatomy, the part of the brain inside the temporal lobe consisting mainly of gray matter that plays a role in memory and emotion, so named because of its resemblance to the seahorse. The secret cave in an envelope. On the outside of the square white envelope placed on the table is Eliza's New York address. Eliza had steamed open the envelope, something she tried to do with all of her precious letters from Mary to keep the envelope intact. When Mary lifts the flap of the envelope, it makes a shape of a small, perfect house, not unlike that of the one in which we were sitting. Mary reads it to me as if the past was now. August 27th, 1966. Dear E. Breathless, I am reborn on my very birthday. For 2 long weeks, I was feeling stuck with my dancing until today. I had stopped loving it. As Merce Cunningham told us, you must love the daily work. A sea wave has found me, has opened itself to me, has danced me. This morning, after coffee and toast with honey from Mr. Larkin's bees, I walked down to the shore. The sun had not yet risen. I made my way under the blushing light of the full August moon. As I walk along the familiar shore, I see a cave formed of rocks that I'd seen often before, but I had never seen it so exposed, so emptied of ocean. Deeply curious, I made my way up to the rocky entrance of the sea cave and stood high on one of its stony pillars. I peered inside, The moon had drawn the tide to a threshold so low that it revealed an alien underwater kingdom more magnificent than any tide pool I had ever seen. The interior glowed a phosphorescent green chartreuse, pilfered and reflected from the seagrass on the carpeted ocean floor, barely flooded by shallow water. I saw a school of small silvery fish like camera flashes. They entered the green hall through the same holes that brought in the light. Starfish clinging to the walls in tangerine orange and purple bougainvillea. Strawberry sea anemone, the color of watermelon, cluster in a rock garden made more vivid by glassy water. And then, without warning, I am violently thrashed into the sea by a huge ocean wave, plummeting me into violent water. No time to catch my breath. Tumbling over and over, no ground, no sky, all water, my blue jeans heavy with water like wet cement. A roaring sound enters me, a hurricane, a train. Sand scratches me. Every crevice of my body is scratched by the sand. I cannot move on my own accord. I am ocean. Time is slow, not there. Like a nautilus, I become all eyes. My pupils are open holes, tunnels, wells. I have no lenses. There are no barriers to the free flow of seawater into my eye chambers. I exchange fluids with the sea. My pupil distorts, elliptical, crescent, unnamed shapes. I am breathing underwater. I see you as blue, nothing without your long-fingered hands, your full breast with their rosy areola, your belly with its soft path of thin hair to your vulva, your legs like limbs of thoughts. You are not in me, but of me. And then, just as sudden as the unexpected plummet, the ocean releases me. I burst out, my heart ready to beat out of my rib cage, my excited pupils enlarged. M. Kiss, kiss, kiss. Made Mary's brain feel clean. In 2009, Merce Cunningham died in his sleep at age 90. Good night, Merce. Good night, Moon. In a meadow, a bird flies in one direction, a rabbit runs in another. So it was on Cunningham's stage. The seemingly lack of coercion focused the mind on the individual dancer and the cell of movement. Watching Merce made Mary's brain feel clean, like she was seeing dance for the first time. Salty, clean ocean brain waves of nothing. Mary turns over the abalone shell, a small one the size of a closed fist. Its iridescent colors gleam with violets, blues, purples, silvers, pinks, and grays, like sardines catching sun rays as their school swims through the Pacific waters. 4 holes for breathing underwater. Underwater ellipses invite the probe of the finger near the shell's outer edge. Mary probes older holes that have sealed up as the abalone grew, which have closed up, also invite touch. Mary traces them too. They are nearly extinct now, you know, says Mary. She shows me the photograph that Edward Weston took of her as a young woman. Look at me and nothing but my dirty ballet shoes with a wall of abalone shell. Call, the film, 1966. She probes the holes of the film sprocket like she had the breath holes of the abalone. The first performance of Call was done by Mary all alone on the beach. The dance had emerged from the secret cave that Mary found on that day when the tide was unusually low. One day in 1966, on an early morning in late autumn, rosy with the same promise as the day that Mary discovered this cave, Eliza used a Super 8 camera to film Mary dancing Call on the beach. Mary takes me into her small living room and threads the film into the projector. For 15 minutes, we watched the silent film on her clean, uneven walls, the mixture of the mechanical sounds, the distant waves, and our breathing. Mary's, more labor than mine, made everything seem unreal. Hearing the projector going while I watched Mary watching herself watch the sea made me feel a part of the movie too, like water in water. I had no idea the film existed. Like a nautilus, we became all eyes. Our pupils are open holes, tunnels, wells. We have no lenses. There are no barriers to the free flow of seawater into our eye chambers. We exchange fluids with the sea. Our pupils distort elliptical, crescent, unnamed shapes. Open. As the evening closed, I realized that Mary has Alzheimer's. She believes I am Melanie. For a while, she is 9 again. She remembers our secret. She opens her mouth, a nautilus shell scrubbed clean. Waiting for the call. One definition of love, the belief in something that only the two of you can see. Dance is hard to see. Dance is hard to see. A month later, afternoon, lying in bed upstairs, my head buried in the softness of an old feather pillow. Freshly bathed, naked, I take comfort in the softness of the well-worn, nearly threadbare, well-washed sheets which have been dried on the clothesline outdoors. The birch trees are lit by a nearly full moon. Their arms reach up to the late afternoon, yowling their white bark voices to the moon, visible this day during the day. One birch branch scratches at the window of my bungalow and peers in at me. I pay no attention to this. I'm not awake and I'm not asleep. I am falling asleep, soporific, soft, peaceful, limp, as a sleeping cat. Moon winks, moon thoughts. Hanging low in the sky, the moon is a pale impression against a background of gray-blue. Rock, paper, scissors. The paper moon has found me on the little blue marble. If the earth were hollow, about 50 moons would fit inside. The moon is light, sometimes even in the day. Oh, light of the moon. The moon weighs nothing, 80 times less than the earth. Light, wait. I am waiting. To love is to wait, as sleigh bells seem in summer, or bees at Christmas show. My phone rings softly. It rings me, but it does not fully wake me. I am dreaming of the paper moon, my lips rooting like an infant. Lunar desire. Hello, my little one, I hear in my ear above a sort of dull roaring sound like the sea. The sound of a seashell telephone held to my ear. The sound of my own blood pounding through my heart, splashing, humming, rushing, coming inside my ear. I pretend that it is the sound not of me, but of the ocean, of you. Mary, let's pretend. It is Mary, Mary calling from that place where the moon stretches the round earth into a slight oval, from that oceanic place that knocked out her breath, like being thrown from a horse, when she was swimming in the big crushing waves of the Pacific, like the glimmering light of a jellyfish washed up on the beach, like swordfish drizzled with butter and squeezes of tart lemon juice eaten on her 10th birthday at Alioto's restaurant perched high on the San Francisco wharf, like the whiff of her bathing suit the summer of her 10th birthday with a navy blue pleated skirt, part salt, part mildew, part girl, part Pacific Ocean, like the soft sandpaper feel of a sand dollar, warm on the dry side, cold on the wet side, picked up at early morning on Sunset Beach, like Mary's childish voice, her sweet high casual pipe, throws off intonations as if she were tossing roses. There is something in these intonations that always makes me want to catch. And from different worlds, Mary and I laugh and talk. I read about her death in the Santa Cruz Sentinel. Having breathed out, Mary stopped speaking. And it was like I died. I died. I laid down and died as I stood up and walked into the next room. There I died. I died, I laid down and died all day, every day, all day, every day, all day, every day, I died. Without Mary, without me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carol. That was delicious and magical. What we'd like to do now is invite you to float outside with us into the area outside the lecture theatre, and we will have drinks, and there's an opportunity to speak to Carol as well. Thank you so much for coming, and thank you again to Carol.
Thank you.